Informações atualizadas e trago para vocês matéria da Sky News Austrália de 31 de março que desmascara China e a OMS. O tema de hoje é o Covid19, China e OMS. Eu vou qualificar primeiramente para vocês a fonte da matéria. É a Sky News, que é um canal australiano de notícias por cabo e satélite. O apresentador é o Andrew Bolt, comentarista social e político da Austrália. O entrevistado é o Richard McGregor, que é um jornalista, escritor e autor australiano, chefe do escritório do Financial Times, com sede em Washington, D.C., Estados Unidos. Assistam o vídeo e tirem as suas conclusões. Se inscrevam no meu canal, deem um like e ative as notificações para estarem atualizados.
Too many people for being the good guy in this catastrophe, for stopping the virus when it started in its city of Wuhan, with a tough crackdown and then sending aid to countries like Italy. In New South Wales, Labor MP Shaukat Musselman is sounding like a shill for the dictatorship, praising China's president for life. Xi Jinping writing that a nation needed tough, unswerving leadership. For China, President Xi stepped up and provided that leadership. He mustered the resources of the nation and together with the great people of China fought it and contained it. I can almost hear the sounds of the East is red as I speak. Well, if you believe China's figures, maybe you could praise it if you believe China's figures and if you overlooked several important things that actually unleashed this virus onto the world, like China punishing and silencing a doctor who tried to warn the world of this new virus, a doctor who later died. China also kept this virus secret for maybe 3 or more crucial weeks, and China got companies in Australia to ship over all the medical supplies they could lay their hands on, leaving us rather short of protective equipment when the virus came here. But there's more. China has so much power now that it has banned the World Health Organization from including Taiwan among its membership. It says that this democracy is just a rebel Chinese province. Now, this matters now because Taiwan has probably been, well, you didn't see Taiwan on that map, never mind. This matters now because Taiwan has probably been the most successful country in the world in fighting this virus. Its population is about the size of ours, but it has had just 300 cases and only 3 deaths. But even more remarkable, it's a lesson to us. It's had this amazing success without closing restaurants and without making people stay at home. Now, the world could and should learn from this. But watch what happened when a Hong Kong journalist tried to discuss Taiwan with Bruce Aylward, who's the Assistant Director General of the World Health Organization.
Will the WHO consider Taiwan's membership? Hello?
I couldn't hear your question.
Okay, yeah. Let me repeat the question.
No, that's okay. Let's move to another one then.
Right, because I'm actually curious on talking about Taiwan as well, on Taiwan's case.
Yes, he turned it off. When he came back again, he didn't want to talk about Taiwan as well. Joining me is Richard McGregor, who for years was a distinguished foreign correspondent in Beijing and in Hong Kong before that, and now is with the Lowy Institute. He's also the author of what I think is the best book written on President Xi Jinping, The Backlash. Richard McGregor, thank you so much for coming on the show again. How much of this crisis do you think can be blamed on the communist leadership of China?
Hi, Andrew. I just wanted to say next time I come on your program, I want to get some of the headphones your previous guest had so I don't look like a retired sort of beatbox DJ sitting in my bedroom. But anyway, to your question. I think the thing about China at the moment is that imagine if you've got a book and they say don't read the start of the book, just read the end. And that's where we are with China at the moment. They simply want the triumph, the vindication, success and the like for, genuine achievements in bringing the virus under control up to a point, but not about the start, which you alluded to in your introduction, when the world and China lost vital time in bringing this under control. So, it's kind of hard for China to have it both ways, but that's the way they're doing it at the moment.
Do we, I think it has had some success, but do we believe the Chinese figures that suggest, for instance, it ended local transmission of the disease and has had just 3,300 deaths? That seems to me improbable, and there's rising evidence that maybe that's not the case.
Well, my answer to that is a mealy-mouthed yes and no. I don't believe the death rates. I think that the number of deaths is probably higher, maybe much higher, particularly in Wuhan and particularly in Hubei province, because in the early stages, the hospitals weren't recording deaths as being from the coronavirus. I do think up to a point they've got it under control, and I think an old trick with China is don't listen to what they say, look at what they do. And I don't think they would have had President Xi Jinping out there in public unless they were pretty confident that they'd made progress. So, my attitude to the Chinese figures is much like my attitude to Chinese GDP figures. They're not accurate, but you can get the general trend from them.
That's a good point. Now, Richard, at the time when we were seeing footage of Chinese officials dragging people into detention and all that kind of stuff and being really tough in maintaining a stay-at-home policy, we were horrified. Now, of course, the West is starting to belatedly do some of those things here, not quite with the brutality, but in as far as they can. And we're seeing a lot of comment now that an authoritarian regime like China can actually respond better and faster to a virus like this than can a democracy with all our concerns about civil liberties. For instance, it could lock up that entire city of Wuhan without any worries about civil liberties at all. How far do you go along with that argument?
Well, it's obviously wrong. It's not to say that the Chinese approach wasn't effective in its own way, but there's lots of examples to show you that it's not the only way. Now, we're having in Australia, as you alluded to, our own debate about this, and I'm not about to weigh into that because there's lots of people giving free advice and I don't feel in a position to. But if you look around the world, particularly East Asia, democratic East Asia, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, we might call that a guided democracy, have all had great success, and they haven't sort of been welding people into their flats by welding the doors sort of thing. They haven't been as tough as China. Now, I'm not saying China wasn't effective, but we shouldn't take the Chinese approach as being the only way to handle this because it's obviously not. We can see it with our own eyes.
Well, look, I keep saying, why aren't more people looking at Taiwan? But speaking of Taiwan, as I said at the start, the World Health Organization, right, it's been praising China for how it dealt with the virus there. It's praised Xi Jinping, the head of the World Health Organization. It's attacked the United States and Australia for imposing travel bans initially on China. But particularly, the World Health Organization refuses to talk about Taiwan, which has actually been the most successful country because China doesn't like it, says it's a rebel province and shouldn't be treated as an independent country. Look, I know you've written in the past about the World Health Organization, but what is to be done about an outfit that I think has been a menace in this fight?
Well, I'm not sure. I think that they're obviously a mess. That tape that you showed us about the famous, now infamous Taiwan interview is just excruciating. The WHO official wasn't even able to give a sort of political answer by saying this is how we treat Taiwan. He sort of pushed the stop button on it. But Taiwan had a bit of luck, if I could say, perversely speaking. They had a bit of luck because last year when China was punishing Taiwan for a political infraction, they put a great number of bans on Chinese going there, and it turned out that was a gift from the gods when coronavirus started because not nearly as many Chinese were going to Taiwan as people thought. On the WHO, they get bullied by big powers. That's what's happened here. I can understand up to a point why they would praise China because they want to keep a relationship, they want to keep access to data and the like. But they've really gone over the top in a way which I think is pretty unedifying.